Yeah, we have attendees coming in, so we will begin it very, very shortly, in a minute or two. Yeah. 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 So we have over 100 attendees. I think which time we begin. Just getting this recorded. So a warm welcome to everybody to this Motor India webinar powered by SSAB, Strenx and Hardox. The topic for today's webinar, as you can see, is advantages of using advanced high strength and wear resistant steels in tippers and trailers. As you can also see, we have our speaker for the session ready with us, Mr. Gerard Piedra. He is the technical director for Turkey, Middle East, and India for SSAB Special Steels. So I'd like to give a very quick introduction and a brief about Mr. Piedra before I hand over the floor to him. Mr. Gerard Piedra has a bachelor's and a master's degree in mechanical and metallurgical engineering. He has 18 years of experience at SSAB with extensive experience on developing heavy vehicles with customers all over the world. So we have a very qualified and a very experienced speaker with us who is technically very sound. And going by the response we've received during registration, I think this is going to be a very, very interesting session where we find a number of technical people with technical background actually joining us. And we have the right person to actually share some very interesting insights on special types of steel that can actually add value to different businesses. So before we hand over, a few housekeeping tips for our attendees. As usual, we have options for you to chat, which is an informal box where you can just share your views for the sake of other attendees. And also you have an option to share your questions to our speaker in the Q&A section. So please type in your questions in the Q&A section. And after the presentation, we will have a Q&A session where Mr. Piedra will address some of those questions. So I will play the role of moderating and sharing those questions with our speaker for the day. The session is also live streamed on Motor India's YouTube and Facebook pages. So in case anybody wants to join in at the last minute, you might as well share the links with them, and we will be happy to have them on board as well. And one last information, we will be sharing this copy of this presentation with you along with the recording of the webinar by tomorrow, so that for future reference, you can tune into the same. So without further ado, over to Mr. Piedra.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to start with an apologize, because this will be only 1 hour session, and we are pretending to touch a lot of different subjects, which every one of them would deserve long time to be able to discuss and have a proper understanding and grip. That's the first thing. The second thing is that well, I'm feeling like home. I've been discussing with heavy transport industry members the last 15 years all over the world, helping them to use advanced high-strength steels in their products. And of course, this type of audience is the one that I really enjoy. I really like to answer the questions, and I really like to speak about this type of products. So let's start.
Gerard, yeah, Gerard, yes. Can you be a little louder? There's a request from one of the attendees. If the microphone can be a little.
All right, I will try that.
Perfect. Perfect. Much better.
Like this, okay?
Much better. Thank you, Gerard.
Perfect. All right then. In this presentation, I would like to touch these topics. We will spend some time in principles, very basic ones. We will also go through a very fast introduction on what is Hardox and what is Strenx. I would like to fly over some reference cases, talk a little bit about economical aspects, and also I will spend a few seconds introducing your contacts for SSAB in India, because we have our own team in the country. Okay. So, as a principles, I wanted to first share this picture. This is a very interesting piece of museum. This is the Ljubljana wheel, which is probably the oldest wheel still more or less intact or semi-intact in the world. It is more than 5,000 years old, and we are actually looking at an axle and a wheel from the oldest commercial vehicle that we have remains. That's a very interesting learning process to look at this type of wheel, for instance, because those wheels were actually equipping this type of carts. You can see here two oxes, one quite heavy cart, and the wheels were massive wood planks fastened together in order to conform the wheel. So you can imagine that was one type of vehicle very much used already, probably more than between 10, 15,000 years ago. So it's a lot of time that has passed, but we have to remember that from these 15,000 years ago, probably more than 10,000 we were based on this type of vehicles. We didn't have anything else. I want that you spend a few seconds on this picture. This is also quite ancient image. And if you pay attention to the chariots here, you will see the first lightweight design in our industry. You will see a wheel that is a spoke wheel, very light. And this has been reported to be probably invented in some place in Central Asia and very fast spread out all over the world at that time. And that created a huge competitive advantage for the main business that we had at that time, that was conquering and war. You can see here, there is one person in charge of driving the chariot. So maneuvering with the horses, and then a second person in charge of the weapons. And therefore, also interesting thing to see that they were using horses. A horse is a much faster animal than an ox. So therefore, this is one of the competitive advantages. And a horse is faster, but it's not as powerful as an ox. So you cannot use the same type of vehicle that was extremely heavy with a horse. So first, lightweight design in our industry. Very interesting. Probably 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. This is one of the very few mathematical relations I will show. I don't want to go extremely deep into technical details because we will have time after these strange times we are suffering now to go deeper into these aspects. But if we go to the steel industry and what the steel industry can offer to you to develop your products, you can always choose different steel grades. But one interesting relation is to see that if I choose a steel grade that allow me higher stress level in my structure, this automatically means extra income. Income for who? Well, we can discuss. Income for the one developing the product, so the OEM, But if the things are done in the right way, also for the end user, so logistic company, and also for the society in general, because this is in favor of a more competitive transport. As I say, directly proportional to more income and also inverse proportional to CO2 emissions. That's also interesting. This possibility we have there because the higher stress steel allow us to use less amount of steel, therefore less weight, therefore less CO2 emissions coming from fuel consumption. So lighter structures, that's a target for all of us in this industry. Why is that? Well, basically because then we can load more. And at the same time, with these materials that I will present today, you can make lighter structures that can load more and at the same time are stronger, which is a very interesting combination. Let's spend a little bit of seconds in this slide. If we look at the left, I want to discuss a little bit or explain a little bit what is the difference between steel and steel, because we are going to substitute conventional steels by advanced high strength steels. Where are the differences? Where we can get the advantages? The material itself behaves in a very similar manner. We have a Jones modulus, and the Jones modulus is the same for any type of carbon steels, so that will not be a difference. The density is also the same for all carbon steels, which means that will not be a difference. The material is not lighter. Yeah? The main difference is coming from the yield strength and the tensile strength. And the designers have to be able to understand this in order to get the main advantages coming from the use of advanced high strength steel. We can look at the right in this slide, and we will see those advantages translated into a finalized product, in this case, a tipper body. In the tipper in the left, we see a traditional conventional steel tipper, which it says weighs 5.7 tons, and it has a volume capacity of 32 cubic meter. And in the right, you have a Hardox version that was a project for a specific customer. And the Hardox version is only 3 tons and has a 34 cubic meter capacity, which means that is actually improving a lot the performance of the vehicle. It can load more, both volume and weight. It helps to reduce fuel consumption, and it helps to reduce CO2 emissions. Many people still think, well, doesn't matter in my area because we can still overload, and I agree. Many areas in the world still are overloading vehicles. But that's not going to last long, I would say. The main reason is that more and more the civilized places will ban overloading. And this means having an economical impact in the logistic operation and also a legal impact. So overloading is not permitted by governments in general. And of course, you need to put yourself into the position of investing heavily in the infrastructure of a country with roads, for instance. So therefore, that government wants to keep those roads in the best way that is possible, which means that overloading is also helping to destroy the roads faster. Therefore, one of the interests from the government is keep the investments, and the second, or the first, it depends on the situation, is also keep the safety. Okay, overloading is directly connected with a lot of accidents in the heavy transport industry. Well, Coming a little bit back to the how to use these materials, these new steel grades that the SSAB can offer in the transport industry. If we analyze the different requests from the performance perspective of our industrial vehicle, we see that, well, as any vehicle, we can have fatigue, which is associated to cyclings in the loads. The fact that it's a vehicle already tells us that we will certainly have fatigue demands on this product. We can have stability, both under the perspective of dynamic stability, how the vehicle is felt by the driver, for instance, and also stability associated to static stability. I put you an example. A tipper body, when it's tipping and unloading, you want it stable. You don't want it to turn over. Then we have the elastic behavior, and this is something that everyone that is working in design in the heavy transport industry knows very well. And I reflect here with the image that imagine that you have a flat tire in a truck, and you want to jacklift the truck in order to change the wheel. The truck is fully loaded. Of course, if I do this operation, I don't want any permanent deformation in my trailer or in my truck after this wheel change. And that's connected with this elastic behavior of the structure. And then we might have another type of performance request, which is the ultimate strength of the material. And that's not very common, but there are some components, there are some applications in which you are extremely interested on how much tensile strength is the steel having. I put the example here of a rear underarm protection, which is never working except when it's a collision. And when there is a collision, what you want is that the device, the rear underarm protection, is absorbing the most of the energy in order to avoid injuries or more serious accidents. What is traditionally happening in the design offices is that, well, we know very much how is the elastic behavior. Let's calculate, let's design according to that, and try to cover the rest of the things by using safety factors. This is a practice that is very common. This leads us to normally quite over-designed components in many aspects. And also this is today easy to solve because we have a lot of tools and available knowledge to focus every specific problem with the right approach. I would like to introduce you a bit what is Hardox and what is Strenx. The first thing that you have to know is that Hardox refers to SSAB material produced for abrasion-resistant conditions. So, in theory, you should be able to solve a problem connected with wear, with abrasion, with Hardox. Hardox is not a product. Hardox is a brand name, and we have several products under the umbrella of Hardox. Different grades, every grade for us is a product. And every grade is supposed to perform the best in a certain conditions or working conditions. Then we have Strenx. Strenx is a structural steel ranging from 600 megapascal to 1300 megapascal. This is the material that you should use for pure structural applications. What is interesting to emphasize as well is that Hardox, being a wear plate, is a quite unique combination of properties. So it is not only hard, it is also very tough, which means that it's a wear plate with structural capability. This is what allows Hardox to be used, for instance, in a tipper body. And as you look in the picture, with no extra reinforcements and things like that. One important thing, only SSAB produce Hardox. For some reason, we have been very successful during the last 40 years producing Hardox, which means that Hardox has kind of become a standard name to designate wear plates in general. Doesn't matter who produced them. For your understanding, Hardox is not a general name, it's a brand name. Hardox is only produced by SSAB, and only Hardox can guarantee outstanding precision, tolerances, flatness, impact resistance, predictable lifetime, uniform wear, and so on. One very important thing to pay attention when you are buying your wear plates is that the supplier can guarantee the hardness level through the thickness. That's very, very important. And we, of course, guarantee this thing and many others of the technical properties of our materials, and therefore take responsibility on that. Okay, I say there are multiple grades, therefore multiple products under the umbrella of Hardox. If you analyze a little bit our website, you will see quite a lot of them. The first question is, well, I'm in the transport industry, I'm producing tippers, or I'm producing trailers, I'm producing this type of vehicles. In which grade should I be focused? What are the ones that are interesting to me? In a very fast way, the answer is relatively simple. I added in this slide the 3 basic grades you should pay attention. It doesn't mean that it could be other grades that are of your interest for more specialized applications, but in general, with these 3 grades, you will be able to cover 90% or 95% of the expected applications. The first one that you can see here is Hardox 450 CR. CR stands for cold roll. And as a cold roll material, the thickness is quite thin. It goes from 0.7 to 2.1. So this is basically a very thin Hardox. You can see in the right an example of application. Is coming from Turkey. It's a company called Fesan, and they are producing these drop side trailers, in which these sides that you are able to open are less than half the weight of a mild steel. So they save more than half of the weight of the traditional solution in the market. So it's extremely light, but at the same time is much stronger than the mild steel version. So dent resistance, tear resistance, wear resistance is so good that you can survive in this application with thicknesses in the range of 1.5, even 0.8, I think. Depending on the use, you might require a little bit more, 1.5, 1.8, 2 millimeters, but this is the range for this material. The second material you see here is Hardox 450, regular Hardox 450. We of course have hardness level around 450 Grinnell, all through thickness, and this material is the general material used in tipper bodies. You see the picture in the right is a tipper body in Middle East, company called Al-Shirawi, and this is the material used for this type of application. Range of thickness you see is quite wide, so should not be any problem to have the thickness you require from 3.2 millimeters, actually all the way to over 130 today. The third material I want to introduce you, it is a quite new thing. It's a new animal, I would say, and this is Hardox 500 Tough. So it's the only material you have available in the world that is 500 Grinnell level harness that you can use in tippers, dump trucks, and similar applications. Because as you see in the three cases, we guarantee toughness level or CharPV level of the level of 50 or close to 50 joules at -40. That's what makes Hardox unique. The capability to withstand shocks, dents without cracking, and also control the wear. Let's jump to Strenx. Which grades in the Strenx family should I be focused on with the heavy transport industry? I put you here only 4 grades. You again have the first 2 ones, Strenx 700 CR and Strenx 960 CR. Again, CR stands for cold roll, and therefore the same than in Hardox CR, those grades are thin versions from 0.7 to 2.1 of structural steel in the range of 700 megapascal and 960 megapascal. The applications you can see here, in the left you have Juven Makina. It's a Turkish customer producing cement bulk carriers like the one in the picture, using very extremely thin material for this, very successfully, extremely light solution, very much appreciated in the market, even in the export market for Turkey. Strenx 960 CR. This is a little bit more special material. It's a higher yield strength, higher tensile strength. I put you an example here. We are running different projects in different parts of the world for underarm protections, in which we want to be as light as possible. And we are actually being able to compete with aluminium without any problem. Then if we go down, we have a Strenx 700 MC, which is the traditional structural grade that we use to substitute the traditional conventional steels. This is a 700 megapascal yield strength material, thickness range between 2 and 10, and very much suitable for chassis, subframe, suspension components, etc. You have here 2 examples, the trailer chassis, nothing to do. There are thousands of examples of that. We are very active with this all over the world. A little bit more elaborate example is in the middle with a suspension link design. This is for Volvo Mack in US, and actually we actually can show the picture and everything because this project was presented in the Swedish Steel Prize, so the customer is open to share this information. So Volvo Mack US suspension link. In the right we have Strenx 960, yield strength 960 megapascal, thickness range between 3 and 10. This is a grade more focused for lifting applications, but also is possible to be used in the structural components in the heavy transport industry, in chassis and so on. But this will be much more demanding from our perspective in terms of design if we want to get full advantage of the Strenx 960 properties. We can go much deeper on these discussions based on individual interest, if you like. I would like now to share with you some specific reference cases in order to help you think if this is actually a matching possibility for your products and your markets. I want to start with tipper in India. I will not share the customer, but you can see here we can actually use 500 Hardox 500 tough, Hardox 450. We are working in several projects. That's why I will not share the customer in the country, and we are working on easy savings of around 30% in weight reduction. If we look down, we see the U-Flex tipper Scania SSAB project in India. This is a rock body off-road truck. This is supposed to be used in heavy-duty mining applications. And you see here that is a 20.3 cubic meter water fill capacity, or heat volume 22 cubic meter, 36 ton maximum payload. The weight of the body, the subframe, and the wet kit is 5.7 ton. This has been already operating in India during enough time to know that there is a perfect match for the operations, and everyone is extremely happy with the performance. More examples, more reference cases. I want to share with you this 50 cubic meter grain carrier trailer from Saudi Arabia. That was a very nice project starting from scratch. We have, of course, the original design, but the customer wanted to have something extremely light, and that was possible to be very, very competitive in the transport of cereal in the market. The solution was based on a Strenx 700 MC. The maximum load for weight was 52 tons, and the body weight plus the subframe was 4.6 tons, 35% weight reduction. There are future plans to even upgrade more this solution to by migrating to a Strenx 960 MC. The second example in this slide is a 18 cubic meter rock body for Saudi Arabia. This rock body is using in the proposition in the right Hardox 500 tough for the floor and Hardox 450 for the sides. The rock that is going to be loaded here is medium size or big size, depending on how you consider it, basalt rocks. The body weight is 2.5 tons, and is 20% weight reduction in respect a traditional design, also based on wear plate. The traditional design, you have it in the picture with a lot of grips in the white color. You can also see that the is a product that is granting 10 ton saving of CO2 emissions and 2.5 thousand liters of diesel in the lifespan of the vehicle. Another reference case, 65 cubic meter scrap container for Saudi Arabia, using Hardox 500 tough for the floor in 3 millimeters, 65 cubic meter, very new project, very promising. The second example in this slide is from Pakistan, 18 cubic meter, based on Hardox 450 deeper body, 10 and 8 millimeters, and a weight body of 2.5 tons. 10% weight reduction in respect 400 Brinell previous solution.
Gerard, if you can be a little bit more louder, slightly bit more louder.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I will do. We see now another example coming from Kuwait. In this case, it's a low bed trailer. Material use Strenx 700 MC, and the maximum load of this vehicle is 80 ton. The weight reduction in respect to the previous solution is 21%. And also the customer, after this first experience, is very much planning to go further in the upgrading process and produce the next generation in 960 MC. Second example in this slide, 40 tons flatbed trailer from Saudi Arabia. The material used in this project is Strenx 700 MC, and the weight is 1.1 ton, 29% weight reduction. Many customers are asking what could be the expected weight reduction. And for you to have a very fast overview, in one of the slides, you will find a relation that I passed before. I can go back a little bit. You see in the top corner in the right, this relation. And this tells us in a very fast way how much weight we can reduce in a given application by knowing which is the yield strength of the existing steel I'm using and what is the yield strength of the new material I want to use. For your knowledge, if you are planning to use Strenx 700 and you are using steel in a range of, for instance, S275, which is 275 megapascal yield strength, then the weight reduction will be something close to 40%. If you are using a material that is in the level of S355, then the weight reduction easily goes into the level of 30%. I just wanted to comment this detail because many people is having these questions, and it's a very fast way without going complex with simulations and finite element tools and things like that to have a fast overview on weight reduction. Then I would like to see a little bit of opportunities for the friends that are joining from different areas that are not the trailers and the bodybuilders. And for instance, the truck industry. The truck industry has a stringent demands in terms of safety for cabins, and we have been very active with different OEMs in Europe, in the truck industry, in order to make safer cabins. And this knowledge is a very much matching knowledge for us, because we have a division in SSAB for automotive materials connected with energy absorption and crash management. So we actually learn from that experience in the automotive industry that we have, and can transfer a lot of knowledge into the truck and heavy transport industry. So cabins could be a nice opportunity. Wheels could be a nice opportunity. This picture here reflects that a forged aluminum wheel is roughly half weight of a traditional steel wheel for a commercial vehicle. I'm pretty much convinced, and we have been running several projects with different customers, that it's possible to create a steel wheel with advanced high-strength steels that is not probably matching the aluminum wheel, but maybe only 20, 25 or 30% heavier than the aluminum wheel, with the advantage of cost compared to the aluminum. Then, of course, cross members in the truck industry, that's a nice opportunity, as well as the longitudinal beams in the chassis. Bus body components, the safety frame in the bus body, with a higher demand, at least in Europe, according to the F66, connected with the rollover and the safety space for the passengers. High-strength steel is very suitable for this. And also, why not? For instance, we have done projects with seat buses. The steel structure of the seat can actually decrease the weight easily 20, 30%. And a seat in a coach or in a bus is repeated 40, 50 times. So that's a quite interesting weight reduction. I would like to go a little bit through some economical aspects, and that will not be also, cannot be very deep. We don't have a lot of time. But one of the things I've seen from India, I've been traveling in India only 2 years right now, and I learned a lot. And one thing that I'm detecting is that, well, it is expected a more professional logistic operation. Today, as far as I know from different inputs, the logistic market in India is very much based on small owners, small companies, maybe having 1, 2, 3, 5 trucks. and the big logistic operators are less common. So maybe the ratio follows a Pareto law. 80% of the market might be small owners and 20% of the market might be big operators. But this is changing. This is changing. And we expect for the Indian market to have more specialized logistic solutions and they're more professional logistic operators. I was also having the input that in a few years, maybe the Pareto law will be the opposite. Maybe 80% of the logistic operators will be big logistic companies, very much professionalized, and only 20% will be small companies, small truck owners. That for sure will promote a mindset evolution from cost to investment. It's not the same for a very small company to buy a truck and how they financially consider the purchase of the truck. In many cases, they talk about cost and they have the cost mindset in their brain. So therefore, they normally want the cheapest solution available. Under a more professionalized environment, this is not considered a cost, this is considered an investment, and therefore the decisions are based on return on investment. Therefore, the performance of the vehicle plays a big role here. We all know that normally the most expensive investments are not the most suitable, but also we all know that the cheapest investment are normally not the most suitable ones. So this for sure will be a mindset evolution in the next coming months, years. So therefore, before was this focus on cost as cheap as possible. Now focus on performance and result. I think it will be also an increase on safety concerns. And also, and that's already something we can see in India, and the feeling of environmental responsibility. I say that we already see it because there is this BS4 and BS6 transition enforced by the government. And of course, we need to all admit that India, the big cities, have a quite big problem to deal with pollution. So that's something that will be more and more in the table. Connected with emissions. As you all imagine, a lighter trailer with a tipper like this picture is not only more beneficial from the economical perspective, it's also more environmental responsible. It's a lot of CO2 emissions saved. Some of them coming from the fact that you need less amount of steel to produce this product, this vehicle. And the second is that you will save more fuel with a lighter vehicle, and you will be able to load more with a lighter vehicle. Many people still anyway wants to have a picture of, okay, what is the cost situation with high-strength steel? And certainly high-strength steel, if you analyze cost per kilo, cost per ton, is a more expensive material because it's a higher performance material. But you always need to look at the complete picture. With the right design, with the right material selection, and with the right production process, you can migrate 100% a vehicle like this. This is the first example I show in this presentation, from conventional steel to Hardox, and still be in the same cost level, or in this case, even cheaper manufacturing cost level. Because in the total cost picture, the material is one component, but the process connected with handling, cutting, bending, welding, we have also a big portion of the cost. And only the right material with the right design can give the best performance. I've been asked if I could include some words about the COVID, and to be honest, I'm not an expert on this, of course. What I've been doing during the last weeks is reading some economical reports. I even found something about India. You have it here in the left. This is the expected or the estimated impact of COVID-19 in India from April to June 2020. And you have it by sector, and also you have overall gross value added effect. And the overall gross value-added effect is expected to be a -9%. From in the right, you have I have the source of these pictures here in the lower part of the slide. This is coming from a report of the economic consequences of COVID-19 pandemic in Europe from Copenhagen Economics. You can see that the drop is huge. It's a different magnitude factor of the previous financial crisis 10 years ago. Certainly the impact, the estimations is that for Europe, total economy is expected to be in the range of over 20, they say 27% in this report. To be honest, these days are not days to read the reports. What I can tell you is that they are very, very sad, all of them. But also I can tell you one thing. Economic reports, doesn't matter which crisis you have, are very good explaining what happened. But normally, very little of them are decent explaining what will happen. It is more in our hands, I would say. This crisis is a little bit strange because this crisis is giving a lot of time. It's giving a lot of time at home with your family, and still we call it a crisis, which is interesting. It gives you a lot of time to think, actually, and to think means that you also need to remember that crisis also means opportunities. Okay, for us in this industry, I think we will need to be even more focused than we should be in added value and competitive products from now on. I think we will need to even prioritize more performance during the product life cycle. So during the life of my vehicle, what is the performance? I think we need to pay attention to hidden cost. And as a hidden cost, I mean extra manufacturing, comparing a mild steel or conventional steel solution versus a high strength or advanced high strength solution with a proper design. Pay attention to unnecessary complexity in our existing products. Pay attention to the downtime and maintenance cost of the vehicles we design and produce. Pay attention to unnecessary weight that the vehicle is carrying because it's too heavy. And remember that a better vehicle with a higher quality and a higher performance also has a higher second-hand value. And that's a very strong argument in some markets. For us in SSAB, well, we have one of the aspects in our vision, customers' business in focus. And this pandemic for sure will have to make us to be even more focused on that. That's something that I strongly believe. I just wanted to finalize. Before that, I just want to present you your SSAB India team. For the ones that don't have this contact, you will receive these slides and you will have therefore these contacts. Mr. Subodh is the area sales manager for India. Don Bosco Celestine is a sales manager specialized for the heavy transport industry, both Hardox and Strenx materials. And then Ramanujan Saravanan is the technical development manager for the heavy transport industry. So this person is your contact when you have questions about how to use the material, which grade, how should I bend it, how should I weld it, and so on. I finalized this presentation here. I just wanted to allow some time for questions. I think we have still like 10 minutes at least in order for you to shoot some questions. Probably I will not be able to answer all of them, but we will right now, but we will do it, of course, afterwards.
Sure, Gerard. Thank you so much for a very, very interesting presentation. I think it kept the audience quite engaged, and a lot of questions have come in. And as you said, we have 10 minutes, or I mean, I hope we wouldn't extend it too much, but let's go into it. One particular thing which most of them are trying to know, even during the time of registration, is the material availability and the service support across different parts of India, especially in North India and also in eastern part of India, especially in Jamshedpur. What would the availability be?
Yeah, what I can tell you on that, and I'm not the right person to know exactly what is happening today, you know, but because I'm not placed in India, so that's why I really interested on sharing the contacts of the local Indian team. But we have improved a lot the availability in the last year. So we have a local Indian stock. We have growth in the Indian team in order to give the commercial and the technical support. And of course, the availability on stock material is there. That can be improved, of course, and this improvement will come with specific discussions with specific customers. But also remember, we can be based on stock sales, but also on direct orders from the mill. There is a constant flow, logistic flow, shipping material from Sweden constantly to India. So this requires discussion, planning, and then fixing anything that can be fixed in that respect.
Okay, yeah. So for those of you who are actually looking at getting in touch with them, you have the contact details in front of you. Plus, the SSAB India team will also get in touch with you. So you can definitely take the discussions forward. Excuse me, after the webinar. Yeah. So we will share some of the other questions, more technical, whatever we can take. Gerard, your views on high resistance and wear resistance steel in truck mixer concrete drum. That's a very specific question that came in. Your views.
Concrete mixer transit trucks. Yeah?
Correct.
Well, in that, both Sergio Moyano, sales director for India, and myself, technical director, had extensive experience because we were the first ones in the company promoting this application many years ago in transit concrete mixers. The best solution nowadays is a solution based on Hardox. Okay, Hardox 450. We produce it in a strip in the right thickness range for this. It is extremely difficult to go below 3 millimeters. So 3.5, 4 millimeters is the normal thickness range. The internal blades, mixing blades, can perfectly be produced with Hardox 450 in 2 millimeters. That's if you want to produce a top-notch concrete mixer. There are other possibilities we can discuss. Maybe will not be that light. This I'm talking about the lightest solution today. But this is what I think would be the best in performance.
Okay, Gerard, thank you. I think some of the attendees are interested in knowing what will be the total cost of operation and also the ROI for trailer builders if they use your steel compared to conventional steel that's available here. That's one. If I may just join 2-3 questions together so that you can respond together, Gerard. One is the TCO part and the ROI part. And second, I think there are concerns where they want to know how can you ensure that the cost of manufacture of the trailer, especially in India, using your steel is comparatively less than using conventional steel. I think there was a graph where you showed the entire cost comparison between this one. So have you had some experiences in India is what they want to know.
Let's start with the last one. Personally, I don't care if the cost is slightly lower, the same, or slightly higher. Why? Because the first thing that the customer, our customer, needs to be convinced of is that they want to produce a better product. if you want to produce a better product and you have this opportunity with our assistance, selecting the material, helping you in the design, and that will mean, in the worst of the cases, an increase of 10, 15%. Well, this is a nice toll to pay when you have a much better product. Because also remember, you don't necessarily need to sell it at the same cost than the previous one. You can actually widen your portfolio. We have cases in which the cost remains the same. We have cases in which the cost is a little bit lower, and we have cases that is a little bit higher. Every case needs to be analyzed individually, because it depends in the starting point, which material you are using, what is your production flow, how many steps you can save on that, and so on. So it's very difficult to tell you it's going to be like that now, no? For your understanding, similar level of cost, minus plus 10%, I think is a quite decent offer, considering that the main energy, the main engine for the customer should be to improve the product. Okay. In respect to the second question, for instance, for a trailer manufacturer in India, I know a little bit the technology level you have. I know that most of the trailer manufacturers are based on hot roll profiles. The first thing you need to consider is that you will need to, in some way, modify the production flow. You will need necessarily change production equipment, some of the production equipment, no huge investments, but in order to open up the door of weight reduction, you need to be able to weld your own I-beams. If you are based in a hot roll profile, you will never be able to substantially reduce the weight of your chassis. So the main cost you need to analyze is that it's not really a cost, is that you will need to analyze what type of investments you might need in the production flow, or what type of partner you might need in order to supply you the I-beam now, because there are also capacity available in the country to be able to produce the I-beams by welding, because then you can choose which thickness I want in the flange, which thickness I want in the web, the right grade and everything. I'm designed with a freedom needed to go for the lightweight design. That's the first thing to analyze. Later on, the material, I say, is more expensive, but remember, you are going to buy much less kilos of a material that is more expensive. And the performance of the new vehicle is really nothing to compare with the old vehicle. So you should be able to sell more vehicles in the market because it's higher performance, or at least a higher price. So that's a endless discussion, no? That I'm very happy to have with every customer.
Thank you, Gerard. Another concern seems to be, I think you touched upon it right now, any kind of changes on the welding, bending, and shearing aspects of the manufacturing process when they actually change the steel. I think a number of attendees actually are sharing questions on these lines.
Yeah, I can give some, try to bring some light on that. Any company based on steel know-how will be able to migrate without any big problem to advanced high-strength steels, Strenx and Hardox. Anyone having a bending machine, shearing, or plasma cutter, or whatever is the equipment, should be able to handle, in most of the cases, the upgraded version of the material they are using. Imagine that you are bending 15 millimeters in conventional mild steel. If you upgrade, maybe this 15 millimeters you are bending today in your press bench will go to 8, 9 millimeters, 5 millimeters the reduction on this in Hardox, which means that the force in many cases keeps constant. We can, of course, analyze every case, because it could be cases that, for instance, you want to upgrade the material, but you don't want to reduce the thickness. Imagine you want to bend 50 millimeters Hardox, but your bending machine was in the limit bending 50 millimeters mild steel, then you are out of the range of the machine for sure. Those cases could be the cases that we need to analyze, and of course, you need to look for a solution. But normally in a normal upgrading situation, there is a compensation via the thickness, therefore is a similar forces involved and similar process. In terms of welding, in 99% of the cases, you will use the same filler metals. You will use same processes. The only thing you will need to be able to adjust is the welding parameters, because you are going to change thicknesses. Okay, so therefore the heat input needs to be adjusted, but it's nothing that is rocket science. And also we give all support on that via our technical development managers. And also we have tools like software applications that can help the customer to calculate the new parameters. It's nothing complex.
Right. Okay. So I think definitely your technical team will be able to assist and support the requests as well. Right. Absolutely. Right. But what we're basically trying to tell here is it's not something to worry about, right? It's something that can be handled quite easily.
No,
right.
No,
right.
My message is any company based on dealing with steel today, mild steel, should not be in any trouble migrating. Of course, I'm not saying that they can do it without reading any information. They will need to adjust few things, but we are there to help on that. But it's nothing complex. It's nothing that is avoiding anybody to migrate to these grades.
Absolutely right. That should give a lot of confidence, to people as well. Right. There's a question on how do you think Indian high strength steel compare against Strenx? There was a particular question that came in. Your views.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the properties of the offer local Indian material. What I can know, or what I can say, is what I know about my materials or SSAB materials. No? And actually, these questions are interesting because normally the customers have more knowledge than us in that respect, because we only produce our material. We don't use any other material. So what I know is that we are benchmark for many steel mills in the grades we produce. What I can also explain is that for us, SSAB, the special steel grades is the majority of our business. For not the Indians, any steel mill in the world, traditional steel mill, the special steel grades maybe is less than 1% of their business. For us, it's the majority of our business. So we're extremely focused on those grades. We have gained a lot of expertise, not only in producing the grades and the quality and the performance of those grades, also on helping customers to adopt those grades in their products. So we can assist a lot on that. And that is what is really making the difference among competitors. The focus, the experience, the quality of the material, and the support. And that's certainly something that you will not easily get, not in India with the Indian producers, with any other producer in the world, because we are extremely focused on that.
Right. Thank you, Gerard. Yeah. There are a few questions that are coming in with a specific value of thickness parameters and other stuff. I would request those questions to be actually directed, post the webinar to the experts. I think that will give a more detailed one. Few more generic ones. Concerns in India, particularly, would be something like, what is the repairability or the patchwork that's possible in your material, like in the Strenx steel? Can it be easily repaired?
Well, this we come back to the same idea of the manufacturing. If you know how to weld, if you know how to bend, you can repair anything that is produced out of Strenx or Hardox. But you need to know the particularities that I say is not rocket science, it's not difficult, but you need to know that. If you don't know it, probably what you will do is to affect the properties of the material in the sense that it's not that it's going to be destroyed, the vehicle will not be destroyed, but you are buying, for instance, a Strenx 700, you are welding so bad and with so much heat input that at the end in your chassis or in your repair chassis, the patchwork you have done is not 700 anymore. It is maybe 500 megapascal because you have destroyed part of the properties of the material. That is what is relevant. To actually know what are the tricks, what are the different things you need to approach in order to have the maximum out of what you get from the mill.
Right. Okay. Another one is, how does your material, typically Strenx, does the economics and the life expectancy compare with aluminum, typically in applications like tip trailers and semi-trailers?
Yeah. That's a nice question, because also I had the interest several years on competing with aluminum in different applications. I can tell you that in some applications we are already there. We are in the level of weight that you can get with aluminum, which is fantastic, because the cost ratio between aluminum and advanced high-strength steel is 3:1. If you can match the weight, this means that you can produce the same vehicle with a 3 times lower material cost. Okay, so aluminum, that was a kind of interesting fashion 20 years ago in Europe, and less you see aluminum vehicles. Why? Well, because cost, of course, and we say this is a company, this is an industry of investment, and what you want is return on investment. The most expensive investment, very rare, is the best investment, and the cheapest investment, very rare, is the best investment. Aluminum seems to be too expensive, and if it's not really justified, you don't see that many. In Europe, I could say that less than 10% of the trailers produced every year are chassis produced in aluminum, less than 10%. And those are in a very specialized type of markets and applications. Aluminum is very nice for flying. Yeah? Airplanes needs to be produced with aluminum. But I think high-strength steels, or the new advanced high-strength steels, are much better for the commercial vehicles today.
Okay, right. One of our attendees wants to know the second-hand value, the resale, when the tipper or the trailers are going for resale. How much of a value does your products retain? Because he feels, visually at least, the products made with your steel and normal steel, visually at least they look the same. So how much of a resale value advantage does it offer?
That's a difficult thing, because the value doesn't necessarily come along with the material selection. A perfect product, if we analyze a tipper trailer, a perfect tipper trailer is the combination of the right material selection, a very smart design, a good quality of manufacturing, and why not? We can add something else, like how much marketing is behind this, what is the branding behind this. And this is what is configuring the resale value, really. It's not that it is only produced with this material or this material. It is reputation, it is quality, it is good design that is performing. Therefore, this unit has a high second-hand value. Okay, we can help of part of this equation with the material, helping to design in the proper way, and even with the branding or the marketing issues. We are the only steel mill in the world that have a brand program. So we have members all over the world. We have more than 1,000 members, both with Hardox and Strenx, that are part of the brand program. And then we accept certain customers with the right level of quality and so on in order to brand that they use Hardox in their equipment. And this is, we see in Europe, in many members of this brand program, that they are very happy to be in the program, not only because, for instance, they have priority when we launch a new grade, that the Hardox 500 Tough, they always have priority to test it. So they will get an advantage of 1 or 2 years, because we are also interested in testing these new grades with some people. So they get this, they get advantage on the technical support, they get certain advantages. But on top of that, they get, and this is coming from them, all of them say the second-hand value is higher since I'm part of the brand program. So the perception in the market is that it's a good quality product. But I again say, this is not coming only because you use Hardox. It needs to be more things in the equation. And we can help you in some of the things, of course. But it's a hard work that the OEM needs to do.
Right. Okay. We'll probably take a couple more questions if that's okay, Gerard. In the meanwhile, we have a quick feedback. Just want to take a quick feedback for the webinar. So we've just presented a poll, a very simple poll. Just give your feedback. A couple more questions. One will be on specifically on bolted type tippers. What is your view on bolted type tipper body in India? And
I can tell my opinion, not only for India, for any place in the world. It seems to don't be something that is solving a lot of problems. It's actually the opposite. It's causing some problems. It's solving minor things. It's solving the fact that maybe if you want to be in an export market and you don't have proper welding quality where you want to export, you can send a body as a knockout kit, and this kit can be easily assembled locally by bolting. That's the only thing, or one of the few things that this is solving. But later on, there are quite a lot of questions, and the questions are not coming from me. It's the customers itself that many of them don't want this solution. I've seen a couple of very good examples. One of them, by the way, in India, very nice designs. I've seen another in South Africa. The one in South Africa is based with our materials. It's working very nice. But the question mark here is what the market is saying. What is the acceptance of the market? And it seems that it's not flying really, because the market is not easily accepting this. It could be very niche, actually. It could be actually solving specific problems in very specific areas. But I don't see today that the response from the market is a general acceptance. And I can tell you, complement with another information. In Europe, there are some trailers that are rivet bolted, okay? And they are extremely competitive in cost, okay? But very few companies buying in the second-hand market want those trailers. They prefer the welded ones. Why? I don't know, because it's also good quality in those rivet, but they are sold at cheaper cost. Also, they are cheaper when they are new, no? So everything goes by hand by hand, no?
Okay, right. We'll end with one final question. One is on your production. It's all happening. Where are your production sites where your steels are actually made? And
we produce all the material that you will see in India. Is all the material is coming from Sweden. We have different production plants. We have in Sweden three mills. We have in Finland also, and then we have in US. But for India, and for what respects to India, all the production comes from Sweden.
Okay, and one of the attendees wants to know if there's any plan in the near or long-term future to produce in India so that the cost can come down. Is that a possibility?
Well, I would not say it's not possible, but I would say it's highly improbable.
Improbable right now, yeah.
Because the level of investment of opening a steel mill is so huge that it is very, very difficult.
Right.
Could be, I don't know, but not. This certainly will not happen in 2 years or 5 years.
Right, understandable. Okay, the last question will be your views, Gerard, on the Indian trailer and probably also the truck application industry. Right now, one is the COVID pandemic that's affecting the entire world, that's one. But in India particularly, the emission norms have changed from April this year, BS4 to BS6. Plus also we had this axle load norm change that happened last year. So many things happening in the Indian market.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are your views on the Indian trailer and truck application market for this year and the near future? We'll end with that.
This is actually an interesting issue because this is forcing everyone to think more, to do the homework, to make things that are more competitive. And I think from our perspective, we can help on that. Weight reduction is a must today. It's not that, 10 years ago, nobody cared. Today is a must all over the world, not only in India. So as light as possible, as strong as possible, this is something that will always be a winner type of product. We are here to help. We are here to help any customer wanting to explore these possibilities. What I think is that India will pass through the same steps that any other country. I've been all over the world discussing with customers doing this type of products. And in all the places, in China, in all developing economies, now in Africa as well, because I'm traveling quite a lot in Africa, there is the same concern. Governments invest for infrastructure, which is the roads. They want to keep the roads. They want to avoid overloading, because if you overload, the weight per axle is more than the one that is considered as a design load for the roads. Therefore, you are destroying the roads. You need to be more efficient. The emissions is on the game as well. We need to take care of our own house, no, so to say, because it's the only planet we have. So the only thing that tell us is that we need to be more competitive. A mile steel today is not the competitive solution for heavy transport, but not only for India.
For the entire world as well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I think we have come to the conclusion, to the end of the webinar. I think those are very nice concluding remarks from your side, Gerard. And as you also indicated during your presentation, we are going through a crisis, and a crisis is also an opportunity for all of us to kind of introspect, look into our businesses, look into our practices, and probably try to improve and get better and identify hidden areas and come out, emerge stronger and emerge better than before. So
absolutely,
I think that was a very, very good message, very important message for all of us during these tough times. And yeah, so with that, we come to the end of this very, very interesting webinar, packed with a lot of information, data, statistics, and case studies. We thank Gerard Piedra. Thank you so much for your time, for your presentation, for handling the questions as well, and sharing your views within whatever limited time we had. And to all our attendees who are still there, as indicated, you're free to reach out to anybody from SSAB. And in case of any queries, feel free to reach out to myself or somebody from my team in Motor India as well. As indicated, you will receive an email with a link to the presentation by Mr. Piedra. You will also receive a link which will have the entire video recording of this webinar. So you're free to refer and share the same with your team and make the most of it. Yeah. So
very nice, and we hope to have the next one in a physical meeting.
Definitely. Look forward to getting back in physical touch with everybody. So yeah. So a big thanks to all of you again. Stay safe. Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.